So Postman Pat making it to a movie is quite an interesting challenge because by definition it's one of those shows where it comes on, you know it's going to be like 20 minutes because that's the way it's
Not even that
been.
long, yeah, it's short. And of course in 90 minutes in a movie you want some emotional journey. You want something with a bit of depth that'll sustain over 90 minutes.
Well, to an extent.
Well, you want...
There's always a Seth Rogen movie if you don't want that.
And of course Pat is also probably the nicest cartoon character ever created. I mean, there isn't a bad bone in his body. So what do you do? Where do you take him over 90 minutes was the challenge. And I suppose they decided to entice him with fame and celebrity and fortune. Turns out Pat has an amazing singing voice.
Yes.
A jaw-droppingly good,
who'd have known
Susan
that?
Boyle-esque singing voice.
Is that you?
The voice of the singing?
Yes.
No.
Oh.
It's not me.
Now I personally was quite disappointed about this because, and I was explaining this to Mark, I went to Cambridge Folk Festival a couple of years ago to see the extraordinary Richard Thompson. And in the course of this set, which was one of the most amazing performances I've ever seen by anybody, you turn up on stage, right? And you join him and you sing and you play guitar. So I'm thinking, okay, well, here's a singing competition. You're voicing Postman Pat. At the very least, now we're going to get Stephen Mangan singing.
Didn't happen like that.
No.
They got Ronan Keating in, who obviously has a tremendous voice and will probably pull in a few people to watch the film. But I think it didn't occur to them that I might be able to do it, probably. They did say once...
Did you suggest it?
Well, they said Ronan Keating's going to be singing, and I must have said, oh, in a sort of slightly hurt way. And they said, well, if you want to sing, you can sing. I said, well, you've got Ronan Keating lined up. You really don't want me to sing, do you? And they said, no, they were insistent if I wanted to do it. But, they didn't really, did they? They had Ronan. And what could we say to Ronan?
Yes. This sounds like a scene from Episodes, really, so basically you're being told, yes, you can sing. No, you can't sing.
Exactly.
Would you like to sing? Because you're not going to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you want to sing, you will sing.
There is always the possibility that on a DVD you could go and you could do the song so that people could have a choice of soundtracks. You could have Ronan or you.
Or when we do the sequel,
Yes.
Ronan could do the speaking voice and I'll do the singing
voice.
We could just mix it up.
Having, as the one person in this room who hasn't seen the Postman Pat film, you've seen it and obviously you're in it. Can you give me a brief... What's the...
I think Postman Pat needs to...
Postman Pat. Well, Pat has promised his wife an Italian holiday, but due to cutbacks at the post office... a lot of the film is about the evils of globalization, which is obviously a big talking point among the 4-year-olds.
It's a slightly unusual moment, I have to say, when clearly this is the reason why Stephen has done it, is to expose the evil capitalist plot at the heart of this corrupt society that we live in.
That is really what it's mainly about. So anyway, there's a talent show run by a character called Simon Cowbell.
I'm there.
Called You're the One. He knows he's the one. Are you the one? And Pat enters it. It turns out he's got an incredible voice.
Ronan Keating's voice.
Yeah, Ronan Keating's voice. And the prize is a trip to Italy, would you believe?
There's the setup. We'll play you a clip. Okay, so here is essentially that moment that we have just set up there with Steve Mangan. Here's
Rather brilliantly.
Clip from Postman Pat.
So, you're let me guess, a postman?
Well, how did you know that?
Wild guess. Name?
Pat.
Postman Pat?
Oh, look at that, Edwin. One of our team is on the telly. Oh, isn't that lovely?
A robot would never embarrass the company like this.
Well, Postman Pat, what will you be dazzling us with this evening?
Well, I thought I'd sing my wife Sarah's favourite song.
Ooh, I'm all a tingle.
Can't help but notice that the key word in that clip was robot. You didn't mention robots.
Robot, yes, there is a robot. A part of the rationalisation of the postal system involves replacing human beings with robots, or more specifically, the Patbot, which is a robot equivalent to Postman Pat.
Patbot 3000, I think.
Patbot 3000, yeah. And I also voiced that, yeah. You heard Jim Broadbent there as well, playing my boss.
It's got good voice talent, and David Tennant.
Rupert Grint, who does sing. Rupert Grint sings his own song.
Now, that is unfair, essentially.
I know. You should be my agent.
You should have said, I'm going to sing Rupert Grint's song.
Exactly.
You know.
He does.
That's fair.
Here's the thing. I just want to ask you about the robots.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is the target audience for this film?
probably 4 to 6-year-olds.
Do you think there's a danger that they're going to get a little bit scared?
A little bit scared. It's terrifying.
Because these robot
What do they look
Pats,
like? What do they?
Well, they reminded me of the Cybermen on Doctor Who. That's
they
how
are scary.
That's how they walk, and their lights and their eyes light up, and they sort of goose step.
You say that though. I do have a 6-year-old, and he's been watching films like Jurassic Park and such for a while. So I think kids these days are immune to terrifying violence on screen.
So they've already become desensitised by the age of 6.
Exactly, they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
So people will be concerned that the music is which is iconic, and everyone knows how it goes, and that it does turn up in the movie.
It does turn up not as you'd expect at the beginning or the end. There is a little snippet of it. I mean, the film uses songs that involve postal themes, and there are quite a few when you put your mind to it. But the obvious ones have Stop, Wait a Minute, Mr. Postman, and Signed, Sealed and Delivered. But yeah, there's lots of films about the post. But the actual theme tune, that earworm, makes a brief appearance.
Early in the morning, just as day is dawning.
Yeah.
Pat thinks he's a really lucky chap.
Yeah. And it's a ringtone, and it turns up quite a lot actually too. And there's a Radio 2 moment where Pat turns on the radio, and it's Chris Evans introducing the Saturdays, singing "Stop, Wait a Minute, Mr. Postman."
Yes, Chris Evans played himself. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. So getting the voice. What did you have to do? So, I mean, we heard a brief clip of that, which is slightly distorted through the microphone because you're doing the test.
Yeah. Well, basically, he's already a well-known and loved TV character, and I think my essential task was not to freak out children who came along and saw their favourite postman and have him sound that different from how he does on the television. So even though he is from Kendal, this is not a Kendal-specific accent. And
what accent is it then?
Well, it's a sort of vague northern, mashup is the technical term. So I made him sound as much like the TV character I could. I mean, it's a weird process doing an animated film, and it's unlike any other as an actor. I went into a booth for 2 days, recorded my entire part on my own, all sides of conversations. No idea at that stage who else was going to be in the film, how they were going to do it. There was no read-through. You are totally reliant on the director having the film in his head. And you're literally going to a booth and doing your half of a conversation, which is really unlike the way you act in any other capacity. The thing I love about acting is it's a team sport, and you get together, and between you work out how to do a scene, and you see what the other actors are giving you, and you give them something back, and eventually you sort of mould the scene together and you film it or you put it on the stage. With this, I went and did all my lines on my own, and 2 years later I'm watching the film.
There's a lot of people who've done animation voiceovers say that in order to get into character they'll do something like they will wear a part of the costume, or there's that famous bit of footage of Tom Hanks doing Toy Story, waving around Woody's arm. Did you have anything?
Well, no, a few years ago I did a video game and I played Rigel, Master of Countless Galaxies. And he was...
That's how I'll always think of you.
Rigel. I am Rigel, Master of Countless.
Now, as an old prog rocker,
yeah,
you must have enjoyed that very much.
See, I didn't get the reference. What's the reference there?
Well, it just sounds like a prog rock.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, the funny thing about doing those is it was a fight game, so you have to do all the sounds. Can you give us a kick in the stomach? Now, that sounds like you're being punched in the face. So you literally spend several hours going into a microphone.
Steven Seagal made quite a successful career out of precisely that.
But I mean, I haven't. Like I said, doing it. It's not. I don't know. I've never been in a Michael Bay movie. I can imagine you might feel in a similar way in one of those. Most of the actors could be replaced by brick walls, couldn't they? Because you are just a tool in the hand of the director. But, you rely, doing an animated film, you rely on the director. Any credit for this film is entirely his, because you don't know how it's going to look even. They animate after you do the voice.
But they'll give you sort of drawings. And
they'll give you a drawing of Pat.
So you can see where you are.
I've seen a drawing of Pat, but, they'll talk you through the scene. You're coming over the hill in your van and delivering letters. But on the whole, it's a weird. You really are a cog, and a sort of uninformed cog for much of it.
Having seen the finished film, having done that, do you like it, and is it good?
I think it's great, yeah. The big test will come on Sunday when my 3 and 6-year-old go to see it, because I'm not the target audience, they are.
Have they seen or heard any of it at any stage?
They refuse to believe. I came home very excited, because most of the stuff I do is adult humour and frankly filthy. So they're not going to be able to watch most of my output until they're, in 30 years
episodes
old.
is going to be a while.
Episodes, Green Wing, most of it, no good. So I came very excitedly home and said, I'm Postman Pat. And they looked at me witheringly and said, no, you're not. And we went to see the Lego movie, as I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
And there was a trailer for Postman Pat. And it was unusual. They said, starring Stephen Mangan in letters 60 foot wide. And the two of them were pinned back in their chair in sort of delight stroke horror. So they are, they're very excited now. And I mean, that's the test, whether they like it or not.
So are you actually going to be sitting next to them while they're watching it? Because I think maybe you should leave them to. I think you should leave the room.
Really?
Yes.
Do you think it's going to be freaking them out?
I think it might do.
See, I've been trying to explain to them since they were born what it was I did for a living, and it's very hard to explain.
Do you think that their natural tendency will be to be supportive? Do you think you'll be able to tell?
They're 3. He'll be completely honest. If he's bored, he'll probably wander up the aisle and leave the cinema. Yeah. That's the beauty of children, that they will let you know exactly what they think.
I was trying to think of the last movie that I associated you with, and you were in Rush.
Just say that sentence construction was appalling. But carry on.
What?
The last movie with which I associated you.
The last movie you were in, Stephen, that I remember seeing you in, is that acceptable?
Yeah, that'll do fine.
Okay.
It was Rush.
Rush. You were a mechanic.
I was. I was a Kiwi mechanic, Alistair Caldwell, head of the McLaren racing team.
So how much time do you get to, do movie parts come along and you have to, because episodes I would imagine takes up so much of your time and has been a big hit and is shown in America, and you're doing series 3 or series 4.
Well, actually, the good thing about episodes is it doesn't take up a huge amount of my time. Because there's only 2 writers, they take about a year to write it. They're involved in the edit, they're involved in every aspect of the show in the American style, showrunners. So we film, on average, once every 14 or 15 months for about 3 months. And the rest of the time I'm free to do what I like, hence being able to do 6 months as Bertie Wooster. The only difficulty is, I know, for example, we're filming series 4 of episodes from the end of July until the end of October. So I can't take any work that will overlap with that. But other than that, I'm available for hire.
You mentioned that Robert Webb's taken over from you in that role.
Yeah.
You and him were both together in Confetti.
We were.
And there was a weird situation. I liked Confetti, and Robert Webb said, well, that therefore means we never take Mark Kermode seriously again, because Confetti was a terrible experience. It was a weird thing. You often get, people, if you're rude about their films, but it was the first time I actually had somebody being cross because I liked something they were in. How was it for you?
I enjoyed it. I mean, Robert had a different experience from me. He didn't have a good time on that, for various reasons. And he and Olivia Colman are not happy with that film.
Right.
I loved it because it was an entirely improvised film. And you don't have many of those.
No.
I mean, Mike Leigh doesn't work in that way. He improvises off camera for
but on
weeks on
set,
end,
it's rigid,
and then they write a script and you
absolutely.
film that script. This was literally 2 or 3 cameras around us, and we were making up everything as we went along. The only thing I would say is that you then end up with hundreds of hours of footage from which you can create
several different
films. You could probably make 90 different movies. Depending on what you wanted to focus on. And the movie we ended up with inevitably was not the film that I would have cut.
Sure.
But having said that, it was rather marvellous to film a scene with Meredith, who plays my wife, and say to her, "You need a nose job," and the next day for us all to troop down to Harley Street to see a plastic surgeon and film with a real plastic surgeon while we discuss her nose job. From that point of view, I loved it, and we actually filmed all the endings. We didn't know who was going to win.
Yeah.
Even though we sort of knew what the film kind of demands, that Martin Freeman and Jessica Hines would win. But we did film all the endings, and I loved it. It also contains a shot of my father, who since passed away. So for me, it'll always hold a place in my heart, because he came down one day as an extra, and he died while they were editing it, and the director put in a shot of him in the movie, which I thought was nice of him.
Very good.
So what's next for you? So we know about episodes, because that's coming back. Is it May the 14th?
May the 14th. Series 3 comes out on May the 14th. next Wednesday, and we start filming. Series 3 comes out next Wednesday. We start filming Series 4 in August.
Because I remember there was some issue when Series 1 was up and running, whether there was going to be a Series 2 was quite a big deal, you know, at the time. But having gone over the hump of the Series 1 into Series 2, it feels as though it could go on for quite a while.
Well, I think so. I mean, these are the guys who created and ran Friends for 10 years and wrote 260 episodes of that. First series are tough. I think that, for my money, it started very slowly. I thought the first 3 or 4 episodes weren't that good. But since then, it's really picked up.
That's not what you said when I interviewed you.
Yeah, well, obviously, because I was trying to sell it.
I think you and Matt were telling us how fantastic.
Well, of course we were. This is showbiz. I think
it's like when people ask you what it's like working with me, and you say, "Yeah, it's great," and it's not until we stop doing. Yeah, right. It's like that. Anyway, sorry, Karen.
But the way it works in these things, the writers get to know the actors and they start to know what they can do and start to write with them in mind. The first series is always written not knowing who's going to be in it, apart from Matt. He was the only character. So I think it'll go on for years to come, hopefully.
And in 15 seconds, what else have you got that we need to know about?
I don't think I can tell you anything that I've got coming up. I've got no more gigs with Richard Thompson, that's for sure. I've been waiting for him to call.
So look out for Postman Pat, which is out
23rd of May.
And I hope you get over the very important hurdle of your kids liking it this weekend.
Thank you.
Stephen Mangan, thank you very much indeed.